Welcome to All Bodies on Bikes, the podcast, where all bodies are good bodies, all bikes are good bikes, and all rides should be celebrated.
All Bodies on Bikes is a movement to create and foster a size-inclusive bike community. So join your hosts, I'm Maggie.
And I'm Marley.
As we explore the complexities of the biking world, help us break down barriers and create the world that we want to see. And don't forget that all bodies really means all bodies, not just larger bodies, but bodies of all sizes, ages, races, abilities, genders, sexualities, and beyond.
Come along for the ride. Hi friends, welcome back to the All Bodies on Bikes podcast, where all bodies are good bodies, all bikes are good bikes, and all rides should be celebrated. But you just heard that in the intro, so I don't know why I say it again. This is Marley Blonsky, one of your co-hosts, and I'm here alone today. Well, I'm not alone because my guest for the show is actually sitting right next to me, which is rare that we get to do this. Most of the time our guests are far away. But Maggie is not here with me today, but that's okay. They send their love. So today's episode is going to be a fun one, and I'm just going to get right into our bio, which I don't know if I can say it with a straight face.
Hopefully you can't.
But this is, we ask all of our podcast guests to supply their own bio, and this is the direction Matt went. Matt Hartman is a very handsome 41-year-old white cis male. He's a taurus with blue eyes, brown hair, an amazing mustache, and tattoos that some may consider regrettable. He enjoys long walks in airport terminals and even longer gravel rides in Northwest Arkansas. Some of his not-so-guilty pleasures include too many espresso shots from boujee coffee shops and the pursuit of the perfect croissant. As we sit here, he has 3 beverages in front of him, 2 of which are espresso.
Yeah, there's probably a total of about 4 shots in there, and it's about 4:15 in the PM.
Good luck sleeping tonight.
You know, I got to pack because I got a long walk in an airport terminal tomorrow.
Oh, we're going to talk about that because you're actually going to do something pretty fun. But seriously, all jokes aside, I'm really excited to introduce Matt Hartman. Matt is the owner and brains behind Stoked Events, a cycling event production company. With over 10 years in the bike industry, doing everything from running a bike shop in St. Louis, managing a racing team, managing NICA events for the Missouri chapter, and occasionally riding bikes himself, Matt has seen and done a lot. With all that experience, Matt brings a wealth of knowledge to the events he produces. We invited Matt on the show today to actually really dig into events from the event director and production standpoint. And I'm really excited to ask him some technical questions.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm really stoked to be here.
Oh, it's a good thing because I call your company the Stoked Events all the time, but it is Spoked Events.
It works. They're interchangeable. I am stoked to be spoked.
Yes. So let's get into it. So I just gave a glowing review. Is that your Tinder bio, by the way?
No, that's not. I just made that up.
Oh, well, it should be your
If
Tinder.
I was on Tinder, it could be.
Oh, well, anyway, this is not a dating show. So besides, your stunning blue eyes and amazing mustache, who are you? What do you do? Tell us about yourself.
Well, my name is Matt Hartman. I'm an event director, technical director, a lot of things event related. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. Shout out to the Lou. Shout out to Nellie. I don't really know.
It's hot in her.
It is. It's actually cold in her.
It is.
Sorry,
I'm cheap.
Northwest Arkansas. It's getting chilly. It's that time of year. Yeah, I've been doing event stuff for probably about a decade now. It seems like forever. But yeah, started at the bottom. Now we not here. We're somewhere in the middle. But yeah, really really happy to be doing events and be in the bike world.
So tell me, let's back up a little bit. What does event director or technical director, what does that actually mean?
So it varies per event. Event director is kind of just a more general term for somebody who's directing the event, I guess, for lack of a better term. Somebody who's kind of in charge and making sure the whole thing is going as planned. A technical director is what I generally do more frequently, and that is the technical aspects of the course or the routing, the permitting, traffic management plans,
The porta potties,
the rest stops, working with local police departments and state highway patrols and all that kind of stuff.
So kind of all the stuff behind the scenes that a lot of us never even think about.
Yeah.
So cool. Thanks for explaining that. Actually, I want to back up a little bit because I think the audience will enjoy this story. Before we get too far into events, can you tell the story of how we met?
Yes, I love this story.
Me
This
too.
is a fantastic story. So during the Women of Oz Summit, which was a few months back, Marley, who is very active on social media, as you know, posted a video from, I believe, was it like a jump clinic maybe?
It was, yes.
Okay. So Marley...
I don't know why I did it, for the record. This is a whole different conversation. But I don't like to get my wheels off the ground. Like, why did I do a jump clinic?
That was evident in the video. So Marley hits this kicker, misses the gap, and goes face first into the airbag. Well, she didn't miss the gap. She stuffed the gap with her front wheel. So
I found that gap real well.
She found it perfectly. If her wheel was looking for it, she found it. So OTB face first into the airbag and got kind of a carpet burn looking thing on her face. So about 2 days after that, I was in the airport going to an event in Albuquerque, and Marley was going to Seattle. And I saw her kind of across the gate. She was playing on her laptop, doing very important work, I'm sure. And I was probably just like scrolling some sort of mindless feed and enjoying my my bagel. So Marley,
that airport does have really good bagels. It's the only thing it has.
That's another podcast. I don't know about that. I've had better airport bagels. So Marley gives up her seat to this elderly couple, which was fantastic. And that's what brought us together physically. She sat across from me and I waited for her to look up and I made awkward eye contact.
Well, okay, backing up. I had noticed his Ozark gravel cyclist hat. And I was like, I wonder if I know this guy.
Oh, yeah. So I wait to make awkward eye contact. And she looks up and I just look at her and I say, "Hey, how's your face?" And she looks up at me kind of like slightly offended, like, who the hell is this dude? And then I explained.
Well, I had kind of forgotten by that point that I had crashed. Like, my throat hurt really bad because it turns out I injured my trachea.
Ooh.
But I had forgotten that was a thing that was going viral on the internet. That video has like 5 million views at this point. It's kind of ridiculous.
Is that your most viewed video?
Oh yeah, by far.
I think it should be like all endos on bikes then.
No, I never, like, I'm a really cautious rider for a reason because I don't like to get hurt.
Yeah.
And like that hurt my ego, that hurt my head, it hurt my bike. I bent my saddle, steel saddle rails, this booty. Yeah.
But you made a friend.
I did make a friend, and for that I am very grateful. So yeah, thanks for rehashing that story.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we've become fast friends here in Northwest Arkansas. I think we're both kind of salt of the earth people and down to earth, and so we become riding buddies and event friends. Okay, so now back to your story. Now that we've brought the audience in, so what are some of the events that you've worked on? Anything that we'd recognize or that folks might say, "Hey, I went to that ride"?
In the last few years, it's been a lot of cause-related stuff. I was fortunate enough to be on the team for the Cyclocross World Championships that happened in Fayetteville in Centennial Park a few years back.
Fun fact, that was the first time I ever came to Northwest Arkansas.
Ooh.
And then I moved here 3 months later.
Yeah, that was a really cool event. Let's see, some Mountain Bike World Cup stuff. Did a lot of cause-related stuff, like I said, this past year. A handful of events with MS Canada, formerly Multiple Sclerosis Society of Canada. Worked with the Lobo Cancer Challenge, which is the University of New Mexico Cancer Center. Bike Across South Carolina, which is a 3-day gravel event. This year we're doing the Ozark Graveler, which is going to be a 6-day across the state of Arkansas on some really gnarly gravel. So look out for that one. That one's going to be pretty fun. And this next year we're still kind of seeing how it pans out and what events are on the horizon. I'm not 100% sure yet.
Can you talk about your involvement with NICA? Starting with what is NICA?
What is NICA? NICA is the most amazing bike-related thing in the world right now. Second only, or maybe only runner-up to like All Bodies on Bikes.
Thank you.
No, NICA is fantastic. So it is the National Interscholastic Cycling Association. It is a cycling program, a mountain bike program for middle school and high school student athletes. So think like, for us, it would have been like Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts growing up, but with mountain bikes. So it's a whole weekend. There's generally the state will have 5 weekends. So it's a statewide program. It's in a lot of states right now. Some states have had to kind of break things up because they're getting so big, and have like regionals or something like that, just to manage the number of student athletes. Some have thousands of kids. But there are races on Sunday, but the way it's structured, the focus is not on the racing at all. The focus is on the community and developing just great humans. The vibe is amazing. Like I mentioned, I've done world championships in a lot of competitive events, and just working with the kids, that there's just that purity there, and they love bikes because bikes are fun. There's no pressure. Nobody's getting on rollers before the race to warm up, and they think they're talking about nutrition, but really they're talking about nutrition. Then they go eat Cheetos. So they talk about what they think is cool to talk about.
Sounds like I would get along well with these kids.
You would. It's just 100% fun.
That's super fun. And you've been involved in the Missouri chapter. Are you staying involved with that? I mean, Missouri, for folks who don't know, is like a 30-minute drive away.
Missouri's pretty close. I mean, being in Northwest Arkansas, we're right across the border. So I moved here about 6 months ago, maybe, and I continued to work with the Missouri League through 2023, since I was part of the team that launched the state. This year, I'm not sure what the schedule is going to look like in 24. So we're going to kind of wait and see how that goes. I really hope that I can still be involved in all those events, but there's also NICA here in Arkansas. So there's opportunities. I'll be involved one way or another. I'm going to head down and help train the Mississippi League on some race operations stuff here in the spring. So maybe my path is maybe working more with national and sharing kind of more the technical aspects to get other leagues going.
Very cool. Well, let's dig into those technical aspects a little bit. So, as somebody who has attended a ton of events, and I think a lot of our audience, goes to events, what is unique about a bike event from a production or a planning standpoint?
A bike event compared to like a different
event, I guess that's not a very good question. I guess talk to me about some of the elements you mentioned briefly. Permitting, working with police departments. If you are planning, let's say you're planning a gravel event. What are some of the things that go into the planning process that maybe those of us from an attendee perspective might have absolutely no idea about that are going on behind the scenes?
So if we're talking about something larger, like your Unbound or your Mid-South or something like that, we're going to have a ton of people. Generally it'll be broken up into like a production crew who does all the build out for the venue. You'll have kind of like, you'll have venue and you'll have course is kind of the easiest way to think about it. So your venue team is working with all the vendors, parking plans. If you've got 1,000 people, you've got at least 1,000 cars. So where do all those cars go? You've got that many people flooding into a small Stillwater, Oklahoma town. You've got to work with the city. Your favorite topic, you got to get porta potties. There's a lot that goes into that. And you want to make sure that you're making friends and being good stewards so that you can come back the following year. And then as far as the course team goes, designing a safe course that has variations in case you come across weather or something like that. So you want to have that kind of in the back of your mind. It needs to be accessible for EMS in a worst case scenario kind of situation. You got to put rest stops places. You got to have your SAG vehicles, if that's something you have, like mechanics driving the course. So yeah, it's kind of a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces. And obviously I've thought about some of those, specifically porta potties. Do you and maybe I should explain this. Like, I just put up a picture on Instagram and people are like, what's with the porta potty? I love them. They are, like, I think one of our most brilliant and underrated innovations recently. Because if you've ever been to a city, I'm thinking specifically of Seattle right now, where there's a lack of public restrooms, it gets really gross really fast. And everybody, I don't care how old you are, who you are, everybody's got to use the restroom. And porta potties just make it usually, hopefully, clean and sanitary and decent. You can just get your business done. So that's why I like porta potties. I think they're a very underappreciated amenity everywhere. But what's the perfect porta potty to participant ratio?
So my porta potty to booty ratio is generally 1 to 100. Generally speaking, it kind of depends on the event. And are we serving beer and bean burritos and espresso shots? Or are we having just all bran flakes?
I think the bran flakes would have the same effect as the bean burritos and the espresso.
All joking aside, I generally do the math with a 1 to 100 participant ratio, and then add in a handful of ADA, which are the larger sized restrooms. I know a lot of women like those because, you have to take your jersey off to get the bibs down. So you need a little bit more room to kind of move around. So I try to be sensitive of that.
Yeah, I always feel bad when I use the ADA space because they're genuine, especially as more and more adaptive cyclists are showing up.
Mm-hmm.
So just a shout out to folks. If you have the option, please don't use that unless you absolutely have to. But I think they're good for families and
yeah, totally.
Yeah. But no, I love that thought and the consideration. And I think if there are, I shouldn't even talk about this. I would say if there's multiple ADA, do what you need to do. But actually, since we're on this porta potty soapbox, if you're at a cycling event, I highly recommend undressing a little bit outside. It's okay to take your jersey off and leave it on the ground outside the porta potty because you're just going to drop things into that nastiness anyway. So get undressed outside. Nobody's looking at you. Everybody's doing their own business. And that's my hot tip for the day.
Unless it's pre-event, then those lines are long, and you can never have enough porta potties before an event.
But you can still get undressed outside while you're waiting in line.
Yeah.
And then you're not dealing with zippers and stuff. And then zip back up before you wash your hands. That sort of thing. So now that we've topped on my all-time favorite subject, from an event director perspective, what are the hallmarks of a good event?
Ooh, hallmarks of a good event. From on the back end, I would like to know that all the fires were put out in a way that the participants didn't even notice. So that's a hallmark of a really strong event team. When things are going to happen. I
would say, can you give me an example of some of those things? I love that approach to it because it's you're not saying none of the fires got started. Things are going to go sideways.
Oh, 100%.
Do you have some examples of things that go sideways at events?
One of the most terrifying things for me is in a criterium race in a residential area, a car somehow gets on course. A resident will be like, why is my driveway blocked? They'll move the fencing. They'll think they can get out really quick. They don't know where the peloton is on the course. So, we'll get a radio call. Hey, there's a car on the course at turn 3. And then we got to figure out how to get that car off before the peloton comes back around.
That's horrifying.
Yeah. But if we get that car off and nobody ever sees it, that's how you know you got a pretty good team.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's probably the most terrifying thing for me in a racing scenario.
What else do you look for? At the end of a weekend when you're evaluating things with your team, what else are you looking for? Are you tracking number of injuries? Are you making note of where they happen on the course and maybe making changes in future years? What does that look like?
Yeah, 100%. Everything is documented in detail, all that stuff. So from a technical standpoint, during a race, say it's a long gravel race, I will be sitting in some sort of control room, and I'll have communication with police, EMS, all the SAG mechanics that are driving the course, rest stops. So, I won't be there personally, but I'll have eyes and ears and contacts, on that 100-mile course, so that if something's happening, I will get a radio call. And generally speaking, too, most events will have like a hotline, like your SAG number, that you can call if you need assistance. So that number will go to me, and I will write down timestamps of every single call that comes in. First rider that hits rest stop number 1 is, exactly what time that is, injuries, all that stuff. So we can kind of see if we need to tweak a course for next year. It can give us an idea of like, did the course have too much climbing for this audience? Maybe it's a fundraiser event and a lot of the cyclists are a little bit more on the beginner side of things. And maybe we designed a course that was a little bit too difficult this year. I love rider feedback after an event to say, hey, this course was really pretty. It was too hard. If people kill themselves on the course and come back and they're too tired to eat the food and watch the live cover band, that's a bummer, like I want to make a fun, exciting course, but also like participant and experience in general is what we're all about too.
Yeah, the full day. Well, you mentioned something really interesting there, and I've always wondered this as a multiple last place finisher. So you mentioned that you're tracking when the first person gets to the rest stop, and you and I have had this conversation before about the importance of cheering on every last person that finishes. But what does that look like from a technical perspective? If you've got me out there if I'm on track to finish Mid-South in 14 hours. And the pros are doing it in, 6 hours. Like, that's a long time to have all the operations going. So how do you accommodate for that? Or do you in the races that you are doing?
From the production staff, event management side of things, a big piece for me is going to be communication. So I will communicate with rest stops saying, your last rider is still an hour out. So, stay put. We don't want you to start breaking stuff down yet. We'll kind of keep the mechanics and the SAG vehicles in the loop too. So, if you're in the last 25 miles, we don't need all 4 SAG vehicles. We can kind of start sending guys home or send persons home.
I use guys as gender neutral.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I try to be better about it.
Me too, but it's okay.
And in a male-dominated industry, 99% of the mechanics are men, unfortunately.
Man, if I could hug you right now. Yeah. Thanks for acknowledging that.
Yeah. So, a big part of it's communication. Towards the end, something like Mid-South where it's getting dark, then safety kind of starts to come into play a little bit more. If you're the only one out there and you still have 30 miles to go and it's pitch dark, we want to have a conversation with you. We're not going to pull you, but we'll say, hey, Marley, it's dark. You still have 2.5 hours to go. Do you want to do this? And you say, yeah, I've been training all year. I'm really dedicated. I have to finish this event. And we'll be like, all right, cool. Make sure you have lights.
I'll say ideally that person, and I make sure of this and I tell other slow folks, be prepared to be out there. Like if you're going to be out there that long, you need to be self-sufficient. You need to have your food. You need to have your water because aid stations might close down. You need to have your lights. I think it's also, the onus is also on the riders because it's not a surprise to me when I'm out there for 14 hours.
Yeah, for sure. And, so hopefully the event has communicated that out front in some sort of email. Hey, you must be able to hold, this mile an hour average to be able to sign up for the 100-mile route. If the fastest you can ride is 6 miles an hour, you probably shouldn't sign up for the 100-mile route. Maybe start with the 50, do that a few years and kind of work your way up. So, because that kind of becomes a health issue too. Is somebody physically going to be able to eat and drink enough, or are they going to, have some sort of, we don't want anyone getting injured.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really comes down to a lot of communication. There might be some sort of liabilities with the organization that's putting on the event. Maybe it's a university or a nonprofit or a hospital or something like that. And they're going to want to pull you for whatever reason. So in which case, I generally like to put you in some sort of SAG vehicle and take you like a mile out from the finish so you can still have that finishing experience, opposed to just be driven all the way in.
Yeah. And then we don't tell anybody about that. Your Strava looks amazing.
You get those segments all the way in.
Yeah. You touched on this briefly, but let's talk about volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
Volunteers I think can make or break an event. What's your approach to volunteers?
Volunteers are the most valuable asset to any event, and I know any event director will tell you that without hesitation. The example I like to give is one of the most important volunteers is your parking volunteer. The reason being that is the very first person a participant interacts with when they get to the event. So you pull in, you need information immediately as to where do I park this car, and they're going to show you in the parking lot where to go. If you have a negative interaction with that person, immediately that puts a bad taste in your mouth and kind of sets the tone for what you're about to get into. So then by the time you get to the registration person, or before you're even on your bike, there's opportunity to have a number of negative experiences. So finding great volunteers, treating them well, that's really, really important to me. Rest stops are another good example. If you have great, lively volunteers at a rest stop and you're coming in and it's dark and you've still got, one rest stop to go and you're feeling a little defeated, but you get there and they've got a Bluetooth speaker and they're banging some Miley Cyrus and they've got, gummy worms for you, then you can recharge, and it really affects the vibe of the event. And, your takeaway when you get to that finish line, you're like, man, I was really dead right before I got to that last rest stop, and they had my favorite sour gummy worms, and now I'm amped. So
Yeah, that's so true. Even from a rider perspective, I can think of probably 4 or 5 specific rest stops at specific events where I had a great interaction with a total stranger, but it made that day so much better or easier or just more enjoyable.
Yeah, so, and they're out there all day too. If you think about, your ride's going to start at 8 a.m. or so, your first rest stop volunteer, they're going to be out there at 6:30 or 7 setting up that rest stop.
Cutting those bananas and making those PB&Js.
Yeah, for real. And then, they're going to wait till we ask them to break down. So say first rest stop is at mile 20 and your slowest person, is doing an 8 mile an hour average. They're going to be out there for first half of the day, and they gave up their Saturday or Sunday to do that. So appreciate them, give them high fives, tell them how awesome they are. And
maybe volunteer at some events for those of us that are often, racing or towing the line.
Yeah, for sure. It can be super fun. It's one of those things that at a rest stop, you own that rest stop. So you get to do essentially whatever you want as far as I'm concerned as the event director. I'm happy to just turn that over and say, here's all the food, here's the tent, the table, the chairs, all that stuff. But if you want to wear Hawaiian shirts and hula skirts and, play the Beach Boys, do it.
Oh, that sounds fun. It sounds really fun. I don't think I've seen much of that. Although one of my favorite rest stop interactions was at Steamboat Gravel. They have a couple of really just long climbs. And at the top of one this year, there was a family and this kid was giving out Oreos and he was so stoked to give out Oreos. And then he also was shaking up little cans of Coke behind his back and offering them to people. And I saw what he was doing, but my friend I was riding with came up behind me and he was like, yeah, man, a Coke sounds amazing. And I was like, oh no. But yeah, sure enough, got the Coke and exploded, and the kid thought it was the funniest thing in the world.
It is.
It It was very funny. His parents were horribly embarrassed, like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry." And thankfully, my friend that it happened to, super easygoing, was like, that's okay. Like, just give me some water to wash it off."
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, yeah. I guess that could really go one of two ways because there's a lot of very serious people out there.
Yeah, there are.
We don't have to say more about that. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, Karens ride bikes too, so it's one of those things. You
Yep.
can't make everybody happy all the time, but if you're at a bike event, especially if it's like a fundraiser or something like that, hopefully you're there to have fun.
Yeah.
And if you're in a bad mood, then something's causing that, and
Then you need to eat more.
eat
Realistically,
more snacks, eat more gummy worms.
Eat more gummy worms. If you're on a bike and you're mad or you're sad, you probably just need to eat more because you're not actually mad or sad. Yeah. That's what I learned from Meg Fisher many years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You just had a notification pop up on your phone that reminded me of a question I want to ask you. So you're flying out tomorrow for USA Cyclocross Nationals.
Yes.
What are you up to there?
I will be doing some course production. So working with a really awesome team. We are building the course. It is in Louisville, Kentucky. So we'll be out there for I think I'm there for 2 weeks.
Nice. Does USA Cycling, do they, how much autonomy do you guys get to, make the map? Or does USA Cycling say, hey, we need, 3 sets of barriers and 2 flyovers? What does that interaction look like?
I didn't personally design this course. A lot of that stuff is done by Sean Thurman, who is an amazing event director, and I've learned a lot from him. Lucky to call him one of my really good friends. So we work really well together. And I think we're kind of on the same wavelength when it comes to course design and build. But to answer your question, there are some things in the rule book as far as course widths and some sizing, things like that. There's different rules for USAC or UCI World Championships, different things like that have different regulations on how you can build certain features. So as far as barriers go, there's no rules that you have to have, so many barriers or anything like that. The rules are more the start needs to be so long, and things like that. They're all kind of safety related for the most part. There's some things that are a little bit antiquated that have just always been rules forever, and they're still rules.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, I mean, for the most part, we have a lot of creativity to kind of work with. You have your physical space, so you have whatever park you're working with, and we'll use features like hills to kind of create speed or to slow the riders down before they come into a turn. So you learn a lot of using the natural landscapes to either create a feature or to control the race, or maybe you want to set up a sprint finish or something like that. So once you've done it a handful of times, or if you've raced a lot, you'll notice some of that kind of stuff from certain race directors. Some people kind of have a style that they like too. So
cool. Yeah, I've raced a number of cyclocross events, and you can always tell when somebody knows what they're doing when they're building a course.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot more fun to ride is really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
They're all rideable and they're all challenging, but it's just more fun and it flows better when it's done with intention and by somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah. And everything has to get approved. There'll be, over the course of the next few weeks, we'll probably do half a dozen course walks with the USA Cycling officials.
Seems like you should do course rides.
There will be some course rides. Most of it's walking, though, just to see more specifically
That's fair.
exactly how this stake is put in the ground. Especially, we're expecting some weather, so it's going to be pretty rainy, which means there's going to be people sliding out. So, a lot more...
some proper cross weather.
A lot more safety things perfect cross weather, but there's some more safety to consider.
Yeah. Again, something I had never considered, but it makes so much sense. Kind of on that same vein, as we're getting close to wrapping up here, this has been a really interesting conversation. From an event production standpoint, what do you wish attendees knew?
I wish attendees knew that our number one priority is and will forever be safety. I know sometimes things seem inconvenient, or sometimes things seem silly, like why'd they do that in this event? They should have just done it this way. Know that we spend 6 months to a year on an event. We've had who knows how many calls and site visits and all that stuff. We've had multiple calls with safety personnel and risk management and all that stuff. So, a large scale event, no stone has gone unturned. And I know a lot of folks just feel like we kind of throw things together, or how hard could it be? It's just a bike race. So I think that, our budgets are not unlimited as much as I wish they were. We could do a lot more cool stuff if I could, bring in the Rolling Stones and and just build these permanent courses all the time.
Oh man,
unlimited money.
That'd be so cool.
Yeah,
that'd be so cool. Well, yeah, thanks for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and volunteers.
Yeah,
tell them they're awesome.
Tell them they're awesome, and you should volunteer.
And please volunteer.
Yeah, actually, for a lot of the bigger events now, that's kind of a backdoor entry. So if you volunteer this year, you will often get a reserved spot for the next year.
Yeah.
So I know Steamboat Gravel does that. I think I'm going to misquote. I shouldn't say this. I want to say Unbound does it, but I could be totally wrong on that. But I know that Big Sugar here in Northwest Arkansas does. Mm-hmm. So great opportunity. Also, if you're just curious about an event and not quite sure if it's your vibe or any of those things, you can always go as a volunteer, participate in the shakeout rides, go to the expo, do all those things, and still get the event experience.
And there's also volunteer stuff you can do and still ride.
Yeah.
So, maybe there's a packet pickup on the Thursday or the Friday before the Saturday or Sunday ride.
Yeah.
So you could still do that, volunteer for a couple hours. You'll get to hang out with some cool folks and then not miss the event,
Yeah.
So.
And there's often event cleanups on the back end because no matter how good we try and be with our little goo wrappers, there's inevitably some race. I learned this word the other day and I'm going to say it wrong. Detritus. Do you know that word?
No.
It basically means like waste.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pick up trash. Just be a good human.
Yeah.
Be an all around good human.
Exactly. Okay, Matt, I think this brings us to the end of our conversation. Well, actually,
it went so fast.
I know.
I could talk about this stuff all day though.
I know. I have one more question before we get into our last two questions. And it might be a very short question. I don't know. So you've been doing this for a while. You've done NICA, you've done cross, you've done mountain bike, you've done gravel, you've done running events, you've done charity rides. Do you have any Marley, you will not believe this thing happened. Is there anything like that you can share? Either funny or horrifying or just astounding?
Well, horrifying is, like I said, always cars on the course. That's always the most horrifying thing, hands down. Oh man, I don't know how to tell this story in a way.
We already have an explicit rating, so that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do my best to tell this in a tasteful way. So one year, oh man, I'm not sure who's going to hear this, but if he hears this is going to be great. So anyway, one year at Tulsa Tough, it was the Crybaby Hill Day, and we shut down the streets in the morning and put the barriers up. So at that point, no vendors can get in. So, the company that's putting up the tents or the porta potty company, for instance, they all need to be in, set up, and gone, by, I don't know what it is, 6 a.m. or something like that. And at that point, the course is buttoned up and there's no way to get cars in anymore. So the porta potty company didn't show at all.
Holy shit.
Oh, so they're a no-show, but we can't wait around for them forever. We have to button the course up and the show's got to go on, So we have a RV where the ham radio operators are set up, and they're kind of getting their station set up. One of the radio operators needs to use the restroom, but there are no restrooms. There's a quick trip up the hill. I believe it's maybe a quarter or a half mile away.
I know where that quick trip is at, on Crybaby Hill.
Yeah.
Yep.
So finally the porta potties show up and they're on a 35-foot trailer and there's no way for us to put them where they need to go. So we are manually sliding them on the ground. I think at one point we may have been pulling them with golf carts, one at a time. So we love you guys. We do everything we can to get you porta potties. But yeah. So anyway,
Yeah, that's an oh my god moment.
oh, we're not done yet.
Oh, okay.
Go back to the command center. The gentleman was not able to make it to the restroom, and all over the inside of the command center where staff was set up to be all day long.
Oh no.
And I don't know if anyone's ever been to Tulsa Tough before, but it is consistently 120 degrees. There was really no option other than to use that room.
Okay, wait. Can I ask a very technical question here that I just don't understand? So you say all over the room, and like there was recently that airplane flight where the person had
Yes, it was that.
all over. Like, how does that happen?
I don't know how it happens.
Like,
I wasn't there.
I pooped my
in
pants
that room.
before, but it has been contained to my pants.
Yeah, all over. All over.
How?
So
I don't get it. I don't
yeah,
get
it was the whole thing. The gentleman went home, he showered, he came back, he was good. But that was quite a literal oh shit moment.
Oh my god. That is horrifying. But thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dang. Okay, so couple last questions for you. If you had a dream event that you got to work on or produce, either existing or you get to make up your own thing, what would it be?
Oh man, I have so many ideas that roll around in my head. These shower thoughts I have of events that would be really cool. I'm the kind of person that wants to do all the things. So tonight, while I was doing my intervals and trying to keep my mind off of how much it sucked, I was like, okay, what would be a cool event? So I think one day you do a cross race. The next day you do like an XC mountain bike race. Then you do like a gravel race the next day. And this is all a camp out scenario.
So the participants are doing all three events.
They can, yeah.
Okay.
But you kind of score it like an omnium. So if anyone's ever raced track before, you get points over the course of the whole weekend. So you could get more points for doing all of the events, or if you just want to do one event, or however you want to do it.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be really
especially
cool.
if you like threw in some bonus points for like fire building or
Oh yeah.
I don't know, like
My other event is to have 2 venues. I remember back going to like Warped Tour as a kid, and you'd have to like study the schedule ahead of time to know like, all right, NoFX plays at this time on this side stage, but then I got to get over there to watch Pennywise. So I've got like 15 minutes to get from this stage to this stage.
and it's like a mile apart at this giant
and it's like a
venue.
mile apart.
Yeah.
So what if we had like an event that had 2 venues, and you would ride your bike between the different venues? Food trucks would be at a venue, concert stuff would be at another venue, and camping would be at one of the venues. And it was this kind of thing where they were 2 individual events, but you just rode your bike between them over the course of the day.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I think maybe flesh out a little bit about what's happening. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
warp tour with bikes.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Although I
I don't even know who's at Warped Tour anymore.
don't think Warp Tour still happens.
No?
I did see a bunch of my like teenage favorite bands the other day. Not the other day, maybe a couple weeks ago. And it didn't hold up. So I don't know that we want to bring that into existence.
Yeah. Be careful revisiting bands you listened to growing up.
Yeah. Well, hey, all right. We've got our final 2 questions that we ask every podcast guest.
Okay.
What does your dream day on a bike look like?
Dream day on a bike would probably be probably just like a long, chill gravel day with lots of farm animals and vistas.
Ooh.
Just enough climbing to get like some really awesome views. No cars, and then general like pop-up mom and pop like grocery store with a deli counter.
That sounds ideal.
Summertime, maybe like a water hole
For water or for swimming?
for swimming.
Oh, yeah. I have a good route. I'll take you on it someday because it hits all of those.
Oh, okay.
Although the
Sign
mom
me
and pop is a Walmart, but
up. We're in Northwest Arkansas, so
it counts as local, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then final question, Matt. This has been a wonderful conversation. I have 2 rules for this. You cannot answer bikes and you cannot answer event production.
Ooh.
I know. What is something that you wish you got to talk about more or that people asked you about more?
I wish people asked me more about my houseplants. Hashtag plant dad.
Ooh, plant daddy?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Tell me about your houseplants.
So I just built this thing earlier today where I have a couple hangers that are mounted to the wall.
Ooh.
And I took a shift cable.
Like from your bike?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's new. It's not taken off the bike.
I mean, I'm not judging. Recycle is great.
Sure. And I strung it between the 2 plant hangers. And now the plants grow from each kind of planter box that's mounted to the wall.
Ooh.
Over the bed.
I have a lot of thoughts on this.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic.
I think if I walked into a man's house, well, we already mentioned that he was single. If I walked into a man's house and saw this, I would think he's got some serious attention to detail. Like that's a real good quality.
That's my job, attention to detail.
Oh man, I have so many jokes I want to say, and
you'll find the dirty jokes in the show notes.
Yes, that's for the After Dark episode. Well, hey, in closing, anything else you want to add before we sign off for the afternoon?
Volunteer, please. Volunteer. Fill out the event surveys and let us know. Like,
you guys actually read those?
We read those. Oh, yeah. Yeah. We read those. So please give us constructive criticism. But we want to know, what can we do better? We're always trying to improve your event experience. And just reach out, too, because, sometimes if I've been doing the same event for 5 years, I might struggle to find, some new concepts or new ideas. So reach out to us via social media or email and just be like, hey, what would be really cool? You guys ever thought about, doing this thing at an event? That might be kind of cool.
Cool. I love hearing that.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks for your openness. Thanks for your transparency.
Yeah.
And thanks for sharing this side of the event world.
We do it for you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All for me.
Well, not all for you.
Oh, but for the royal you.
For the royal you.
The royal you.
So we want you to be involved in the process. We want it to be something that you walk away from. It's not my event. It's your event.
Yeah. Well, cool. Thanks for joining the show, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Where can folks find you if they want to learn more about your event or what you've been up to?
You'll find me on spokedevents.com. I'm on the socials too. We'll put that in the show notes. And then you'll also find me riding my bike all around Northwest Arkansas.
Any events on your calendar for next year that you are 100% in on?
100% I'm in on the Mid-South Double. Bobby, I'm coming again.
I'll be there, but not doing the double.
It's going to be real hard. So I need like an extra special Bobby hug after that. Did it last year and I'm kind of dreading it this year.
You're going to do great.
What else do we have on the calendar this year? Dirty South Roubaix, I believe, is going to be on the calendar.
Where does that one take place?
That is Alto Pass, Illinois.
Okay. I would not call Illinois the Dirty South.
Yeah, I know, right?
Interesting.
There's a few other things that I can't think of right now, but yeah.
It's all good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you see Matt out there, give him a wave, give him a hug, and say thanks for producing all these events and doing the good work that we all enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Thanks for coming to the events. Keep coming.
Keep coming and keep volunteering and keep listening to the podcast. Cool. Thanks, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Before we sign off, I have a huge favor to ask of all you podcast listeners. If you are still listening, we are currently running a survey because we want to know who you are, what content you like, what you don't like, what you want to hear more of. Just go to allbodiesonbikes.com/survey and give us your thoughts. And I hope you all have a wonderful week, and we'll talk to you next week.
This is an All Bodies on Bikes podcast powered by Feisty Media. The show is produced by Maggie and Marley and edited by the team at Feisty Media. Thanks for listening.
Are you tired of getting caught in the rain with poorly fitting, flimsy rainwear? Well, let me introduce you to Cleverhood, makers of thoughtfully designed, durable, and size-inclusive rainwear. Cleverhood is designed by women, but is made for everyone who wants to embrace the elements and enjoy the ride, no matter the weather. Cleverhood was born out of the need to make rainy days into happy days, and with multiple choices of styles and sizes, all bodies can stay dry, visible, and happy. Maggie and I especially love their rain cape. Literally, the only thing you need to fit is the head hole. Otherwise, it just fits. It's so cute and functional, and I feel like a superhero when I ride my bike in it. All of Cleverhood's designs have reflective elements thoughtfully integrated, including an option to customize it with the All Bodies on Bikes logo. They're also sustainable, with most of their fabrics made from recycled fibers and PFC-free DWRs. Social sustainability matters to Cleverhood too, and they only work with certified producers who follow labor and environmental standards, and they give nearly 5% of their profits back to community organizations, including All Bodies on Bikes. So whether you're commuting on a dreary morning, walking your dog in the rain, or waiting for the bus, Cleverhood is a great option. And remember, you can use the code ALLWEATHER for 15% off of your order.